There's band classes. Which means I started the day at the high school, and then come over here. And I did, and I was over at the high school, and everything was great, you know. So I finished over there, came over here, it's about 9:30. And I felt really good. And I went down to the library, got a laptop from Mrs. Camp, signed at the office. And I was heading back, and out of the corner of my eye, this was kind of strange, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a poster on the wall. It said, "Signs of a Heart Attack." I walked to, like in front of the cafeteria and made a turn, and all of a sudden it hit me. And I really wasn't sure what hit me. I didn't have some of the classic signs like they say you get this crushing pain in your chest and you get pain shooting down your left arm. I didn't have any of that. What I did have was I felt really, really sick, really nauseous, and I felt really faint, and I was sweating really bad. And I did have a little bit of discomfort in the center of my chest. But I thought maybe that was just because I was getting kind of scared because I was feeling so bad. So I made it down to Mr. Wells' office, and by the time I got in there, I was feeling pretty bad. So I called down the office and asked for Mrs. Beasley. She came with Mr. Jones and Mr. Hoggett and some other people perhaps, and we called my doctor, and they said, "Come in." So I did. I probably shouldn't have driven myself, but I did. And I felt okay on the ride there. And I got to the doctor's office, and he hooked up all kinds of little plastic things to me with wires coming off it. And they did what they call an EKG, which sort of tracks what's going on in your heart. And he said, "You're having a heart attack." Okay, now that's not a real pleasant thing to hear. But he said, if you're going to have a heart attack, you're having it in a not too bad place. So you're having it on the back of your heart, and you'll be okay. So that relaxed me. The ambulance comes, the guys who are working on me, you know, and I get in the ambulance. They hand me a handful of chewable baby aspirins, which tasted pretty good. And so anyway, I get to the hospital, and I can see up ahead there's a team of about 20 people waiting. So when I get to them, things really started moving fast. And they, hooked up more plastic things to me, and more wires and everything, and took me, long story short, they took me into a sort of an operating room. And they put a catheter in it. A catheter is kind of where they run other tubes and things in it. So what they found, though, that little heart attack that the doctor said I had, when they went in, they found that a really, really, really big problem. And if you ever look up a picture of a heart, you'll see it. There's over the front of the heart, there's a great big artery. And that wasn't where I was having a heart attack. But that is where they found that it was almost completely blocked off. So they went in and they put in what they call a stent, which is kind of like a straw. Think of it as a straw, but it looks kind of like a net kind of thing. And that opens everything up. So in a way, that little heart attack maybe saved my life. Just like being here at Rogers that day probably saved my life. Because as my wife and I were talking, if I'd have been home, I might have just said, I don't feel very good. I'm going to lay down for a while. That would have been a wrong thing to do. So there's really no such thing as a little heart attack. You have to be aware of the signs. You have to be aware of the signs. And the thing is, sometimes one thing I learned is that women present differently. They oftentimes have different symptoms of heart attacks than men do. So you need to be aware of all that stuff. You need to be aware of diet. So I'm going to be okay, but I have to make some changes in my diet. Now, one thing that surprised me was I work out a few times a week. I watch pretty well what I eat. I've never had a problem with my cholesterol or my blood pressure. So it's like, what happened to this guy? Genetics. You guys know what genetics are, right? Okay. genetics. My mom and dad both had heart trouble. So thanks, Mom and Dad. You know. But that's apparently where I get it from. Now, knowing that, I have to take care of myself even better than I did before. I have to watch some things and, limit my salt. Salt's a real big one. Fat's a real big one. All the stuff that makes our food taste good, right? So I just have to be really careful about all that stuff. So you guys starting early learning about this kind of thing, hopefully will save you from having problems like I have. But and also be aware of these symptoms so if you can recognize them in somebody else, you can help them. So anyway, I'm going to be okay, and the next time that I sub for you, that just means that you can help by being very, very quiet. Sit there and work quietly. You can say things like, Mr. Shaneberger, are you comfortable? Mr. Shaneberger, is there anything we can get from you? You can say things like, Mr. Shaneberger, I finished my work, but I'm going to go ahead and do the next 25 questions in complete sentences. So, anyway, thanks to Mrs. Beasley, thanks to everybody here, my old friends, and thank you guys very much.